What up, though? This is your boy Mike D, host of Wrestling from the 313. We got another dope episode today. My guest, this is his first time on the show. He is actually one of the CEOs of the Wrestling Society Network, Brady Owens. What up, though? And welcome to the show.
Man, I am happy to be here. Been a fan of the show since seeing you pop up in the Wrestling Society community.
I appreciate it, man, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to have my podcast your on your network.
Absolutely, it's a good show. I mean, it wouldn't be on there if I and everyone else didn't enjoy it. So, good work. The quality's good, the consistency, everything you do is solid. So, keep up the good work for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So, real quick, for anybody that doesn't know about the Wrestling Society Network, just tell them a little bit about yourself and tell them about the Wrestling Society Network.
Absolutely, and I don't, as most of you know, Professor Bears are uh, our main advocate for the brand. I don't do too many interviews, so I tend to keep things rolling. So bear with me. But WSN, the Wrestling Society Network, it started as a podcast. Um, if you want to go way back to when I, first had the idea of even doing a podcast, I didn't know podcast existed. And this is back in like 2017. So there were plenty of podcasts in general, but there were only about 4 or 5 main wrestling podcasts. And those were like big name, JR, Steve Austin,
Yeah,
Jericho. It was their shows. And once I started researching how to do that, I'm like, man, anybody can do this.
yeah, yeah,
So I started trying to grind, and there's a lot of stuff I was having to learn as far as promoting and advertising, marketing, learning how to talk properly, learning how to record. So much to learn, when in the world of podcasting, and
yeah,
I had an idea that surpassed, and that's one of my problems is I get bigger ideas before I finish my the current
yeah,
project I'm on. So I had bigger ideas, and it was to have a network which is similar to the WWE network, um, and this is when Netflix, the streaming service, got big. This is before WWE brought their network out, but I was thinking, man, it would be cool to have a channel or a network like this that was just wrestling content, and not just from one company but from multiple companies, multiple independent, everybody's, for the most part, if you're a wrestling fan, you've been to an independent show, and when you
yeah,
go there you have the time of your life, and I want to be
yeah,
able to take that and put it on TV so you can go to an indie show in your living room.
yeah,
um,
yeah,
and then wrestling podcasts. I started, as the couple years gone by, I'm seeing thousands of wrestling podcasts, and some of them are incredible. Some of them have some work to be done, and some of them, unfortunately, are you know working on the get rich quick scheme, which I'm sure you and anybody else watching knows. You don't get rich quick on a podcast. That's,
nah,
you put in the
nah,
grind, and you have to do it because you're passionate.
yeah,
um,
yeah,
but yeah, and I realized quickly, because I failed consecutively for 4 years trying to get this whole network thing going, and I knew I needed to start as a podcast, so tried to do it, and it just was not going anywhere. I had started doing good, and then it just died. And I was watching a YouTube creator, and it's somebody who's very popular. Y'all know him as Mr. Beast,
oh
and
yeah, yeah,
uh, I was not familiar with him, but he was. I mean, just like now, he's huge. And I always watched his videos when it was just him. It was him by himself. And I'm like, how does this guy put all this content? How does he do all the editing? How does he do all this stuff? And then there was one video where he introduced the team behind everything, and it was like a light bulb moment. I'm like, he has a team. Like,
yeah,
bro, I need to get a team. And so I started going in wrestling groups, reaching out to people, wanting to start a podcast. And Professor
yeah,
Bear is the very first person to respond. Um, I had them send in videos, just, saying why they're wrestling fans and such. He was an immediate, I saw him. I'm like, I want him on the team. And
yeah.
it's funny because now he's my best friend in the world. So it's
That's
funny
what's
how
up.
things work. Kuya was on there, Gavin, Tevin G, It just came together quickly. We started doing podcasts. I mean, we would get average of 4 live views, a week, but we didn't care. We had no structure. We would do 4 hour streams. It was just no structure. Didn't really know what we were doing, but knew what we wanted to do. And we actually came out with our own content. Professor Bear's wrestling history class on YouTube. Clayton's wrestling club. He does card openings and other kind of things. And then we decided to do a 2K show. Not
Yeah.
like the 2K shows you see, you know, going now where you have just dream matches, but we wanted to get our followers and put them in game characters, have them do voiceovers, and create storylines with them. And so we started doing that, and bro, that blew up like quick. Like it went from 100 views that we celebrated to 1,000 views to you know 2,000 views weekly. Then we were started hitting 6 to 8,000 views weekly, and then our big show, Wrestle Forever, our big 2K show, hit like 13,000, and we're like, excited, but we're like, it's we're getting big fast, and we're not ready for it. So we
Yeah.
kind of had to, you know, pull back a little bit because we had 2 weekly 2K shows, and having to edit that and want to do a podcast, and that's a lot to do even for a team.
Yeah.
And we still wanted to create a network. We wanted to create a website. And to do that, we had to partner with a lot of other content creators, other podcasters, other wrestling promotions, other content creators. We needed to get licensed for other wrestling, type content, whether it's, movies or documentaries and even music.
Yeah.
So we were the idea was 2K will be a big part of it, and we have been writing, we have been building, running storylines, but we're building it all up in once, and then we'll, set it out on a schedule. So 2K is not gone. 2K is still here, but we wanted to have a network where we can air it on because YouTube is incredible,
Yeah.
but it's very limited as far as what you're able, the capabilities.
Yeah.
And if you're a podcaster or a content creator and it's just you, YouTube is incredible. But when you have multiple different content creators and different shows and different licensing, agreements you have to run through, and it becomes very difficult to work with you. It's almost like working with the license, the right holders, and then
Yeah.
having to work to YouTube and then having to work them together. Whereas if we have our own app and our own, copyright to our own website, then it's between me and the right holders, or WSN the right holders. So we knew we needed to get off YouTube, even though it was doing good. And it's frustrating because you start doing good, it's scary taking a step back,
Yeah. Yeah.
but when you're building a foundation, you got to build that thing strong so that way it lasts for ages. And that's kind of where we are. And piece by piece, I mean, Bear would be staying up at 3 a.m. just to be talking to content creators and promoters and podcasters from the UK and from Australia and stuff like that. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
working around the clock. And then people are, I'm a salesman, so I kind of trained Bear how to sell it, and I told him, when you sell it, you go into it expecting them to say no already. How are you gonna push it a little further? You already know they're gonna say no. How are you
Yeah.
gonna convince them? And one of the biggest ways to convince somebody with what we're doing is it's a win-win for
Yeah.
both of us, because we don't pay money for content and they don't pay us to air their content.
Right.
It's let us use your content, then we have more content to show. We your fans and followers can now watch your stuff on our show. And you know when you have multiple different promoters and podcasters, then their followers can listen to this show, and your followers can listen to that show, and their followers can listen to your show. It just grows naturally. It's the ripple effect.
Yeah.
We're not making any money off of our content. We don't charge anything. We and eventually when we do start, bringing in money. It's going to be from, you know, advertising.
Yep.
We don't want to charge, and of course, merchandising, but we don't want to charge our viewers because most of our viewers are actually content creators themselves. They're podcasters, they're promoters, they're wrestlers, they're, you
Yeah.
know, from all kinds of sports. So WSN, the Wrestling Society Network, I was very big on Wrestling Society. I knew for a long time that's what I wanted it to be because, growing up in Texas, small town in Texas, I didn't have any other friends that watched wrestling.
Okay.
It was me, and I love my mom to death. She would sit down and get into it with me, so I wasn't, watching it by myself.
Yeah.
Um, and it's hard when you enjoy something so much, but then you can't go to school and talk about it. You
Right.
don't have people you want to go and tell them what happened last night on Raw or whatever, and you don't want to wear wrestling shirt you got for Christmas because nobody's going to know what it is, or people are going to make fun of you, and you
Yeah.
know, and I never went to a school where there was bullying. I will say that I never, but it was just in my mind, like, nobody watches wrestling. I'm the only one, and since I'm the only one, it must be weird. And then social media came around. And I'm like, bro, a lot of people enjoy wrestling,
Oh yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and like I say, Bear is my best friend in the world. I have yet to meet him in person, like that. Like that's
Wow.
the power of social media when you use it
Yeah.
properly and to spread love and positivity instead of you know being offended and getting mad and trying to make people offended and stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
like, dude, people don't understand the power you can have with social media creating a a society,
Yeah.
a group of people where I can, if I wanted to, I could go on any wrestling podcast because we partner with so many. If
Mhm.
you wanted to, we could get you any independent wrestler, with it because we deal with so many promotions or any promoters or, and then just seeing one of the things that makes me so proud is when I see a podcast, like yours, and I see you or another podcast, y'all have each other on your shows. It
Yeah.
makes me feel like that's what it's about, bro.
Yeah.
It's like two separate podcasters. They're not competing, trying to be the best. They're just talking about wrestling. That's what this is all
Yeah.
about. So
Yeah.
the Wrestling Society Network, that's what it started as, is wanting to, you know, those people that feel alone as a wrestling fan, or they feel like they can't be a wrestling fan because nobody else around them is, like, this is for
Yeah.
you. You can enjoy it how you will. All of our, we're currently running three, about to run a fourth live stream. If you're ever by yourself, at home, and there's no wrestling on, which nowadays is almost unheard of, there's always wrestling going.
Right.
But if you want to talk to somebody, hop on the WSN, Facebook group or on the live stream and go in the comments, and you may make some new friends.
Yeah. You know what? Since I've been starting this journey wrestling podcast, that I have met a lot of cool people. Like, I talk to these cats more than I talk to people in my hometown.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, like you said, like, we all are coming together, we all working together because we all got the same goal in mind. We trying to some way, somehow make it big, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying, and turn this
absolutely.
wrestling podcast into something that could be full time, and possibly somewhere down the line make some good money. But yeah, definitely, like you said, if you use social media for the right things, you could definitely, good things could come out of it, and you could meet a lot of uh, good, cool people.
100%.
So, just talking the real quick, just going back to you growing up in Texas and watching wrestling. Like, who were some of your favorites?
So, as a kid, I grew up in a house with three sisters and my mom, and my dad passed away,
Oh, sorry to hear that.
when I was younger, and that's all right. It, but my mom was very, she didn't know how to raise a boy, and she didn't want to raise me like my sisters, like a girl, and so what she would
Yeah,
do is she would sit down and turn on, gunslinger movies and action movies and football and baseball and basketball, and all these sports and, things that guys really enjoy watching. And she turned on wrestling, and I, to this day, if it's a sport, I'll watch it. I'm always watching sports.
Yeah.
Um, but wrestling was different. Wrestling, twice a week it would come on, and it was almost, and I've said it before, that wrestling really stepped in and kind of took place where, my father should have been and wasn't
Mm-hmm.
able to be. And so a lot of the life lessons I've learned from wrestling. And my mom was good with, because back then in the Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression, there was a lot of indecency with the women. And
Oh
those
yeah.
those would be the times where I had to go get my stuff ready for school tomorrow during those women matches and stuff like that. So she wasn't, exposing me to things I shouldn't have been exposed to at a younger age.
Yeah.
And it was mostly just the men degrading the women like that. She didn't want me, because she knows I don't have a dad to kind of explain that to me from a man's standpoint. So she didn't want me getting that from, wrestling. So I don't, and I've seen it now, replays and stuff, but I don't recall seeing most of that women, wrestling and stuff like that when I was a kid. But you asked me who one of my favorites were. Uh, one of my favorites was definitely Eddie Guerrero. And one of the things that I used in my life, and it's very famous, everybody knows it, was his promo with Brock Lesnar before No Way Out 2004, where Brock pretty much told him his past, he can't overcome his past, his demons are too strong. And Eddie
Yeah.
pretty much told him, I was going to prove you wrong, and I'm going to overcome my past and overcome my demons. And pointing to the championship and saying that championship represents that I'm sorry, and if I can do that, then I can hold that up, then I can tell my family and my wife and my sisters that I'm sorry and that I'm going to provide for them. And that was the moment where I'm like, that's the kind of man I want to be. Somebody who doesn't focus on my past mistakes, but you know what? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna support my family. I'm gonna, overcome any past demons I have. And if I, meet some new demons along the way, I'm gonna keep pushing through. And Eddie winning that match and the crazy thing is if Eddie Guerrero lost at No Way Out 2004, all that promo, all that build up, I wouldn't feel confident in using that in my
Yeah.
life. So the fact that he won it is what really cemented, you know, that belief in me that I can overcome my demons. Um, WWE did really good with that because no one believed Eddie Guerrero was going to beat Brock Lesnar. Like
Yeah.
that's like no,
Yeah.
especially prime Brock Lesnar where he was taking down Big Show, Undertaker. Like nobody was going to beat that Brock Lesnar,
No.
especially not Eddie Guerrero. Comedy coming out a lowrider Eddie Guerrero. Like so it
Yeah.
you know growing up there was a lot of different moments in wrestling where I definitely saw guys. Jeff Hardy was another one, the Hardy Boys in general, but Jeff Hardy was somebody who I unfortunately for my mom got a lot of you know that I would go do the swanton on cardboard boxes off the top of the car and stuff like that. God was really protecting me. But Jeff Hardy was the one that I wanted to be like. Eddie
Okay.
Guerrero was the one that really taught me, you know, the father figure type lessons. But Jeff Hardy was who I wanted to, you know, encapsulate myself like. Um, but yeah, wrestling. WrestleMania 17 was the first. Uh, live pay per view I watched, and I was hooked, bro. That ladder
That's tough.
match, the TLC match, it was. I was gonna watch wrestling, and to this day, I've watched. No matter how bad it gotten before I stuck it through. I watched it all the way through, and I enjoyed every. Well, I can't say I enjoyed everything. There's a lot of stuff that as wrestling fans, you just know
Yeah.
they missed with that one. But even to this day, AEW, there's things they do wrong. WWE, there's things they do wrong. But
Yeah,
I'm not going to be one of the people who goes on, social media and only talks about what these companies are doing wrong. I'm going to
yeah,
go and talk about what they're doing right, what I like seeing, because, you know, part of its business. When the wrestling business is doing good, then my brand is doing good.
right.
Um, but second is I just want to enjoy the show. I want to enjoy what I'm watching. I want other people to enjoy what they're watching. If there's something that needs to be discussed from a creativity standpoint, and we're not just slamming it, but we're talking about how we would do it differently,
Yeah,
that's a great way to go about it. But unfortunately, there's people who, and the people who go on social media and just slam wrestling. I'm telling you now, you will never make it.
nah,
Plain and simple, you're never going to make it with that kind of mentality, with that kind of, if you focus on all the negative stuff, you're not going to make it. So if you're wanting to make it, focus on the positivity, and on the negative stuff, focus on how you would do it or how you can make it better. But don't just slam wrestling. Who's going to listen to a wrestling podcast that hates on wrestling?
yeah,
Make it make sense. Like that's, bro, like that's not a very good business model. But unfortunately, there's people that are just going to hate wrestling and call themselves fans. Can't do nothing about it. But wrestling changed my life in multiple ways, and it's more than just a show to me. It's and I trained, was training to become a wrestler, but I waited till I was a little too old and I was engaged, and I'm like, you know what? You know, I'd rather just do something a little bit different where I can still, you know, wrestling could pay me in the long run without having to actually travel and put my body through that. And even as a wrestling fan, I knew it's I know the ring is hard. I understand that, but you don't understand it until you take a back bump. And you see people and it looks like it has a little give, and you're like, that doesn't look that bad. You don't feel that give at all. Like when you do a
yeah,
backdrop, it feels like you're just dropping on concrete.
mm,
So respect to everybody who does that. That's crazy. But yeah,
yeah,
wrestling as a kid, it helped shape my entire life pretty much. So you know, big part of my childhood.
yeah. Same here for me, cause I've been watching. Well, I'm in my 40s, so I've been watching wrestling since the days of Hulk Hogan, the first WrestleMania, the
Nice.
Saturday nights main events from back in the day. So I've seen it all, and wrestling has been a big part of my life. I think the best, my favorite time in wrestling would definitely have to be the Monday Night Wars. WWE versus WCW, just the back and forth, flipping the channels to see which show is going to be better. Um, the NWO were my favorite faction. Um, the whole storyline that they had going on with Sting, and then you had over in WWE, Stone Cold doing this thing, him and Vince McMahon, which if that rivalry never happened, a lot of people don't realize this. If that rivalry never happened, WWE probably would have went out of business. Like
Hmm.
they were really, really on the verge of going out of business. And just the way that they turned that slump around, that 83 week losing streak, and just turned it around,
Yeah.
it was crazy.
I mean, nobody, with that specifically, nobody really had seen somebody take it to their boss, so aggressively the way Steve Austin did. And
Yeah,
that was something they can relate with. They
yep,
can, Monday, worst day of most people's work week, get off work, come home, and everything Steve Austin was doing, they were living through and, wishing they could do that. But,
yep,
and that's one of the things where they could relate with. And the NWO was one of my favorites, and everybody wanted to be a part of the NWO, as fan wise. But
yeah,
the realization is like there's not much you can relate to with that. Like when you go to school, there's not a group of people that you could just align with that beat everybody else up.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and Sting is the Sting coming back. Sting versus NWO, where he officially beat Hogan. that was my favorite WCW storyline.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, me
and
too.
that's definitely, and if they, that was their peak. That was when, in my opinion, as far as a fan, that was when I was like, it can't get better than this. Sting holding that title, everybody in the ring lifting him up, and then, of course,
Yeah,
they end up running it really quickly after that.
very quickly. Like,
Uh, uh, it's they did that right with Sting. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, WWE, they just learned how to relate to the audience, and I'm sure they meant to, but I don't know if it was something where they thought about it, or they just said, "Hey, let's go this direction," and that's ended up being what happened. But they're geniuses over there for sure. So I think that's something they realized, like, hey, we can relate with our audience. Um,
yeah.
and that's what most people do. And there's sometimes, well, there's past work. I'm very happy with where I'm at now, work wise, but there's been old bosses I wish I could give the stunner to. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, most definitely, most definitely. So, you being the CEO and building you and your team building the Wrestling Society Network, um, what are some of the challenges that you faced in building the brand, and how did you overcome them?
Uh, One of the biggest challenges is self doubt, and I believe that that's one of the biggest challenges for pretty much everybody, but not a lot of people. Either they don't realize it or they're not open about it.
Yeah,
But self doubt has definitely been one of the biggest obstacles. And Bear will tell you I'm the worst delegator. I am terrible when it comes to, we have a team of about 20 people,
okay,
and I'm terrible when it comes to, having everybody do different things. And it's not that I just want full control. It's that I feel like a burden giving people things to do, and I don't want them to feel like, oh, I have to do this. And Bear, it reminds me all the time, he's like, man, this is what they're passionate about. This is what they want to do. They wouldn't be here if they didn't want to do this stuff. And
yeah,
so having to learn how to delegate and really swallow the feeling of being a burden to people. And then when you do start delegating, you start thinking, man, things are going good. I don't want somebody to hurt my creation. I don't want somebody to hurt my baby, and I don't want to you know turn it over to the wrong hands. So I start getting nervous about who is doing what. And I've not had any issues. I'm very proud of my team. And the hardest thing, it's like some shows will hit about 4,000 views. You feel great after that. You feel good, and then you do a show that hits about 500, and you're like, man, that
yeah,
what did we do wrong? What did we,
yeah,
and then you start kind of going into a slump, and that's the worst thing you can do, because when you start feeling that self doubt, you're not. You have two options. You can either start going down or you can start going up. And going down is that self doubt that, man, what did we do? Like, we really messed it up, or people are starting to tune out, or they're not liking it. Or you could be like, we didn't do it something right with that show, but let's watch it back. Let's see what we could do differently. Let's see what worked in other shows that had higher number. And once you start thinking like that, then you're going up. You're figuring out what works, what doesn't work. Um, and that's with everything. Our website, and I've had people test our website, and I always thought I was somebody who could take constructive criticism well, but I learned I wasn't. Because I'd feel something is really good, and then our beta testers would be like, "Man, I'm not liking this." I'm like, what are you talking about? I worked really hard on that. But
yeah,
the majority votes, it's like, okay, if everybody else is voting against it, that's what we'll go. And we have a voting board. It's three of us, the WSN main board, if you will. We call it the voting board. When we come up with an idea, or somebody pitches us an idea, or there's a promotion wanting to work with it, whatever, there is something to vote on, we come together and vote. Even though I'm like the CEO, the founder, the creator, I don't want to rely on me by myself.
Right.
because of self doubt. If I start feeling like, man, I really like this promotion, but I don't know, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one that likes it. And, I go to a vote and they'll be like, yeah, let's vote for him. I'm like, oh, sweet. So I did feel good. Or if I feel that way, I'm like, I might be the only one, and then they vote no, then it turns into more of a reassuring, like, okay, I had a feeling that it wasn't. So it's when you have a team to be able to tell you, yes, you should feel concerned about that, or no, you shouldn't feel concerned. You should feel good about it. It kind of makes you feel a little better. And I've had all members of my team come to me with self doubt about something, and it's so funny that when they have self doubt, I'm at my highest, so I can comfort them or encourage them or motivate them. When I have self doubt, Bear is usually the one I go to, and he's at his highest, and he's able to, give me that encouragement and that, and that's something that I think God has just kind of worked out is, when one of us is down, the others are high. And
Yeah.
so with self doubt being the hardest, the growth and everything else, it's when you start anything, a business, or uh, if you start, wanting to become a wrestler or a bodybuilder or a skateboarder, whatever you do, you have to go into it understanding that you know nothing. And when you have that mentality of I know nothing, then you can focus on learning. But if you go in like I know everything and it's gonna be a lot harder. So when you come down and think, don't make your goal 5,000. I know people who are like, we're going to hit 500,000 subscribers. It's like, well, you'll get there. You'll get
Yeah.
there. But you start with, and here's the power of social media. Like I said, start with 20. You get 20. Guess what? Every everybody watching, they have at least 20 friends to share it to, and then that 20 expands to 200, and then that 200 has 200 fans, and then you get to 2,000, and then you start, like, don't focus on the big, focus on getting those smaller groups and keeping those smaller groups. Get 20 people, and I know you got a lot more. This is just in general for anybody else watching.
Yeah. Yeah.
But get 20 people, and those 20 people, make sure you go like their stuff. Make sure you call them out during a stream. Make sure you comment on some of their stuff, share some of their stuff, because when you do that, then they're like, this guy supports me, I'm gonna support him. And then when you get those 20 people and you support all those 20 people and you say, hey, go follow that, go follow him, go follow him, they're gonna stick with you. And then you
Yep.
can focus on your next 20, because you're not going to lose those. But if you focus on your 500,000, then you get 20, and then you're not even focusing on them. You're focusing on more. Then those 20 start dissipating, and then you get another 20, and those 20 start to. So focus on, when it comes to growth, little by little. You don't want to get a six pack abs, go do 20 minutes of sit ups and expect there to be change. No,
Yeah.
it's you got to keep pushing, keep focus on the first workout, then focus on the next workout, then focus on the next, and it starts showing. So the growth part, that's something I kind of knew going into it, so that wasn't as difficult. But that's one of the things I hear from everybody else that's difficult is the growth, and it's difficult for them because they're expecting to start it and a month later have 20,000 people viewing them.
Yeah.
Um, Go into it, be excited, celebrate the progress. You get 20 people, celebrate that. 20 people, that's incredible. That's 40 plus uh, you know that's 200 plus opportunities that they can do stuff, and ask those 20 people, hey, is there anything you'd like to see on the show, anything I could do better, and take their advice, and show them that they matter. Um, and then when you do that, nobody likes to start slow. People want to do
Yep.
sit-ups for 2 minutes and then look in the mirror and have six-pack abs. That's what they want. Unfortunately, that's not reality. When you
Yep.
learn that's not reality, then you can start growing. So that's my advice there. But my hardest has definitely been self-doubt, and I have been overcoming that. And they're just like for everybody, there are days, but um, as long as you wake up and you can put both feet on the ground and stand up and keep going, what's stopping you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You know what? When I started my YouTube channel and started this podcast, and I was just hoping that I would get to 50 subscribers. You know what I'm saying? You know, I
Right.
had support from other podcasters that I knew and stuff like that. And then it was just I remember this. It was August. I had 76 subscribers. I said, I gotta do something to make this grow. So I had a little idea, with some shorts or whatever, and I started doing that on a consistent basis, and now I got over 2,000 subscribers,
I was gonna say you shot up.
and I got over 500,000 views. I think I got like 555 or something like that. So I never expected that, and I was just to see it just grow every day, man. Like I'm
Yeah.
blessed. I was just hoping for 100 subscribers by the end of this year. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's keep your keep your bar low and then keep surpassing it and then just move it
Yeah,
up little by little. Don't try to, when you're climbing a ladder, you don't reach for the top rung.
yep.
And yeah, I've definitely been seeing that growth from you, and I'm, congratulations on that. It's incredible, and the
Thank
content's
you.
worth it. And I've had a lot of people too ask me, what content should I do? What kind of things should I? I'm like, everybody has different stuff. Find what works
Yeah,
for you.
yep.
Don't try to copy other people. Don't try, like you said, you've been trying new stuff with shorts. It started working. Things work differently. I tried stuff with shorts. It didn't work for me.
Yeah,
So there's no right answer to this is what you need to do. And, people from YouTube and stuff, they're going to tell you shorts, shorts, shorts. Try it. But if it
yep.
doesn't work, don't keep trying it if it's not working for you.
Yeah,
Try something else. Try going live. If live's not going for you, try doing recorded. If recorded's not working, try seeing how you can edit some things. And if you can't seem to get it going on yourself, then start going and interviewing other podcasters. Go start watching other podcasters and start taking notes. Learn some stuff. Internet, you'd be shocked at how many free classes and lessons you could take on anything. Um,
and
but yeah,
just learning, like, just putting the opening for your podcast together, or outro. Like, a lot of stuff isn't hard. You just gotta just read stuff and then just kind of put it together. And once you put it together, it may not be perfect starting off, but it's you'll always, like you said, it's that growth,
yeah.
for sure.
Celebrate the progress and keep growing.
Oh yeah, most definitely. So real quick, can you share like behind the scenes insights about how content is produced or how you guys select it?
Yeah, it's. I don't. And here's the thing: I don't even know if it's considered complicated, because it's become such a natural thing. But there are different things, when it comes to uh, getting licensed. Because on the WSN app, first of all, we had to find a developer because it requires coding and all kinds of stuff. Having a Roku app is not like YouTube. You just go create a channel and upload your stuff. You
Yeah,
have to have a developer, or you have to know how to develop, which that's like 8 years of learning how to code properly.
yeah,
So you have to have a developer unless you're blessed with the ability to know how to, and that's one of the things, you either really are born with coding ability or not. Most don't have that, and that's why there are developing companies. And um, you have to trial and error. Some will work, some might not work. We started with a developer in Germany. The time difference was too difficult, and found out they had a partner company in the US. So we, got with them, and it ended up clicking, worked great. Um, and then once you get content, you have to understand too that it's very easy to get yourself in trouble, and you have to, you know if you're going to create an app that has other people's content, don't do it without researching and really learning the copyright laws. Because there are things, people think you have to pay for the rights for content or movies and stuff. That's not always true. If you're not making any profit, you can reach out to people and they can grant you the right. And then they'll just accept any royalties. Anything that you make, you have to pay them if you making money off of it. That includes running an advertisement in the middle of one of their things. Um, So you can do it free if you're not gaining any profit on it and the right holders agree. But as far as getting it, you can do two things. You can reach out to a distribution company, which is a company that goes and gets the licenses for you. And you just pretty much pay them and they go get the licensing for you where you can use it without royalties, which is usually the easiest way. Or you can just find in every movie company, everything has emails with people that you can straight up email, explain who you are, send. If you're a copyrighted company, you can send your copyright and all your stuff, all your information, and then tell them what you're, the business, what you're wanting to do. Explain to them how there's no profit, send them your links and stuff. And most of them you don't hear back from. It can be months, and some of them you'll get an email back surprisingly pretty quick. Um, you know, Tons of them say no, some of them say yes, and some that say yes are surprisingly, like some of the stuff we have is like, man, I can't believe we did that. Like I did not expect to have that. And our developer system we use is great because if there's something that we don't have the license to or the copyright is showing an infringement of any sort, they will take it down for us and notify us. So if we need to, go and make sure the agreement and everything was good, um, so we don't have to worry about it. If it's on the app, then it's allowed to be there pretty much. Um, but getting content, that's kind of the big content: wrestling promotions, podcasts, other YouTube shows, stuff like that. Um, all these people have social media. We just message them, say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're about, this is our offer. And if you're in the networking business like we are, always have a counter offer to their counter offer. um,
Okay.
there's a lot of times where you offer, and there's a lot of times they're going to counter offer, like, okay, we like that and we will do it on these conditions. Then you have to sit down with whoever's on your team and decide, do we want to counter offer this, which means, we accept your conditions on these conditions. And if they accept it, then great. If they don't, then it wasn't meant to be.
Right.
And that salesman tactic, you have to expect 9 no's before you get that one yes. But if you're putting email out, email, message, you're going to get a lot of yeses. And then when you get all those yeses, you can go and see, because we are a networking, streaming service, so we have to have top quality stuff. There's podcasts that we've had to turn down, promotions we've had to turn down because we didn't feel they were consistent or their quality wasn't great. And Bear has done so well when he says no to somebody because their quality is not there yet. He really expresses it saying, we want your stuff on there, but we want it to be a little bit better. So work on yourself, get better, make us come to you. So that way, we come to you and say, hey, great content. We're ready now. We want to bring you on. Like, we want people to want to be better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, we want people, if we say no, we are basically begging you, please go make us want you. And we've said no to a couple podcasts before that we've come back and said yes to, and a wrestling promotion as well. So they definitely, some will do that. If you get butt hurt by it and you get offended, then I mean, we're not going to sit there and try to not hurt your feeling. We're a business and we have to, have content where people see it and they want to be on there. They want to enjoy it. And unfortunately, not everybody has a great podcast. But guess what? My podcast was one of the worst wrestling podcasts ever when I started. Like, there's a reason I'm not doing a show by myself, even though I have the platform to do it. I have other podcasters do their shows. Um, so it's business. Like, if I've gotten told that maybe I should try something else, I gotten told that by my mom. Love her to death, but she was right. Like, I'm not meant to be a podcaster. Um, but I didn't get offended. I'm like, okay, well, what am I meant to do? And I
Yeah.
start trying to focus on what I can do.
Yeah. You know what? When I started this podcast, I did it by myself in my car, but an hour before I started work. You know what? Because I was always procrastinating. I'm like, I'm gonna do my first episode. I'm gonna do my first episode. It was always procrastinating, and I just said, you know what? I just jotted down some stuff that was going on in wrestling, sat in my car, and I just talked about it for about 45 minutes, and that got me started. And like you said, you always want to get better. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And you always gonna think of things to like, what can I do to make this better? You know what I'm saying? And
Right, right.
like, it's just been it's a journey. You know what I'm saying? It's a
Yeah,
journey. It's a marathon, and like it. I can't be thankful enough for starting this, because I was just really just like, what can I do, in this wrestling with in this wrestling community. And then when I got into podcasting, it was just like I kind of felt my kind of felt my found my groove. And then just meeting all these other podcasters, it just made the whole journey even better.
absolutely.
So real quick, you being the CEO, what has been the most rewarding moment as the CEO?
Man, there's it's a loaded question because there's so many answers, but I'll give one personal one. I was at a Ring of Honor show with my wife, and
Oh,
there, and the show had just ended, and it was when we were doing the Wrestling Society podcast, which was part of WSN, and I was the main host, but the other guys kind of led the show for the most part, and um, I was waiting for my wife to. She was going to the bathroom or getting something from the concession or something like that, and I was standing there waiting, and then I heard somebody, behind me yell like, "Brady Owens," and I'm like, "Whoa!" I'm like, and I start feeling my back pocket because I'm thinking somebody has my wallet. Somebody I lost my wallet, and they're reading the ID name, so I'm like, "Oh man, somebody's got my wallet." And I start thinking like, "Shoot, who is that?" And I turned around, and this guy's walking up, and he's like, "Brady," I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "From the Wrestling Society podcast." I'm like,
oh, that's
"Yeah."
what's up.
He's like, "Man, I love the show. Can I
Yeah.
get a picture with you real quick?" And I was like, "Are
Wow.
you kidding me?" Like, bro, like that was one of those moments that, it got me emotional that somebody wanted a picture with, little old me. Um, but it was something where it really kind of made me feel like, you know, we're we us being popular is not like, oh, everybody knows us, but it's like we're making somebody's day. If he
Yeah.
knows who I am by how I look, then he's watched or listened multiple times. And that means, whether he's having a bad day or whatever, he's enjoying, he's getting escape from reality by watching our show.
Yeah.
And personally, that's been one of the most rewarding things. And, um, Bear's waiting for his moment. He's always saying, and I tell him, like, bro, next big show you go to, you're going to get recognized because you've done so much. Um,
Yeah.
but overall, it's like I said, it's when I see people who are within the Wrestling Society network on the Facebook group, and I
Hmm.
see them collabing with other people that are part of the group. It's one of those things like I see one podcaster on this podcast or a wrestler on this pod, if they're part of the group and they're, doing business with another member of the group,
Yeah.
that's the only thing I can imagine that would be like is, being a parent and seeing your two kids playing together and getting along and, just
Yeah.
loving each other. Like that's something that's like, I'm so happy that I created a society and I didn't create it. I just helped build it with my team. I created the platform for it, if you will.
Yeah.
But seeing that is something, it's something special where it's like I think back when I was a kid and I didn't have that. I didn't have friends that I could just go to and just talk about wrestling with, and
Right.
being able to give that is something of its own, feeling. It's definitely special.
That's what's up. I think one of the moments that I've had being starting this podcast and since I've been doing this, I got an email from an online magazine, and they actually did an interview with me for their website, and I don't know where it came from. I don't know who recommended them to me, but they reached out to me, and I think that was like one of the best moments, like since doing this. You know what I'm saying?
Hell yeah, man.
I'm the next thing I'm waiting on is one of those play buttons from YouTube. I'm definitely getting one of those.
You're getting one of those for sure.
So real quick, you got any advice for any inspiring entrepreneurs, creators that's looking to get into the wrestling industry?
Yeah. And uh, I I could probably write a book of advice, but I'll try to keep it short and sweet. Don't the main thing is if you what is your mindset? If your mindset is I want to make money and that's it, you're going to end up failing. If your mindset is I love this and I want to do this because I enjoy it, then you'll succeed. And it's as pretty simple as that. But you have to understand too, like I said, if you don't learn to celebrate the progress, you'll never grow. You'll be too critical on, you set the bar so high that you can't reach it, that you keep quitting and you keep having self doubt and you keep thinking, I'm never going to get there. Build it, put the bar low. And I'm not saying put the bar low as in don't have high expectations for yourself. Just understand that if you want to build a house to stand for a long time, you're going to take time on your foundation.
Yeah,
Don't look at other people and think, man, they got big numbers. I want to be like them. Or don't go out there and be like, my goal is 50,000 people and hope that people think, oh, this guy's going for 50,000 people. It's like, no, don't worry about what other people think.
yeah,
Worry about the group that you want to follow you, the
yeah,
group that you want to communicate with. Don't just try to grow numbers for numbers. Grow for people who are going to become friends and followers, and when you see them comment, you know who they are because they comment every week and you know exactly who they're a fan of, who they're not a fan of. um, Create people who are going to create followers that are going to stay.
yeah,
But yeah, as far as entrepreneuring, as far as that goes, uh, understand what you're doing, understand what you're allowed to do, understand what you're not allowed to do, understand that you will have more hard days than good days, but understand too that the good days are always going to outweigh the bad days if you're passionate about it. And then of course, I as a believer, things are so much easier when you have a certain hope. And you know where my hope is in Jesus, and that's something where it's like, you know what, no matter what happens, I know I'm going to be standing up the next day. I know I'm going to wake up, and if I can wake up, then I can go and kick ass. And that's one of the mentalities you got to have is if you're breathing, you ain't dead yet. And
yeah,
if you ain't dead yet, you got work to do.
yeah,
So don't waste all that breath and all that life and all that energy, drowning in self doubt. You know, what can you do? What can you do better? If something's not working, don't keep trying to make it work. Do something different. Don't, and then the last thing is be you.
yeah.
Don't go and try to be, what's his name? Mr. Beast. Don't go and try to be Mr.
Yeah,
Beast. Don't go and try to be you because one day when you're famous, you want to be famous and you want people to look up at you. Like one of the things is you could do it. You could copy somebody and be better than them. That's for sure. But a lot of people don't understand is before Hulk Hogan, there was Billy Graham
yeah,
or yeah, and I mean, and then you had before Flair, there was Buddy Rogers.
buddy, yeah,
Like these guys that you look at, there was a first,
yeah,
and you want to be a trailblazer. You don't want to be a follower because when you're a trailblazer, then you stick out so much better. You
yeah,
stick out so much more. And it takes a very specific kind of person who can take somebody else's idea and do it better. But if you do it your own idea and you do your own ways, then you it's unlimited as how far you can build. Because if Ric Flair, if he's going to take his stuff from Buddy Rogers, that's about as far as he can go.
Yeah.
It's about as far he can't go past that. He can't really, what's the word? He can't re-innovate himself because he took from one guy. But if
Yeah.
you're the Undertaker and you didn't take from anybody else, then you can reinvent all different kinds of ways you want to till Sunday, because it's your idea. And I know technically it was WWE's idea, but you know,
Yeah.
building off of it is like you could do all these different things, because it's not copying anybody. Now, if
Yeah.
Ric Flair was to go do something completely different, then it would be kind of a shot to the guys before him, like Buddy Rogers, and that's just one of the things that I think is there's so many more possibilities in lasting long in the long run when you find out who yourself is and what your ideas are. Don't try to take other people. What do you want to be? What do you
Yeah.
want your show to look like?
Yeah.
What do you want your followers to be like? Like, you have that control.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Well, Brady, I thank you for coming on the show. It's been a long time coming. Uh, I remember hearing you or seeing you posting that you wanted to start doing podcast interviews. So I had to bring you on the 313. Is there anything that you want to announce that WSN has coming up, or any shout outs or anything?
Man, as far as WSN, we got weekly shows on Facebook at the Wrestling Society Network. Um, we just had a big show that just aired before we hopped on now, which I don't know when this is coming out, but it will still be up there, between two, you know, former best friends, brothers who have kind of gone in. They're feuding right now. So we did a show
Yeah.
with them to let them kind of hash it out on the lowdown. So check out the lowdown.
All right.
We had Shoots and Ladders podcast come on with Professor Bear's new wrestling show,
Yeah.
A Bear's Thoughts. Check that out. And then every Tuesday, watch along. Um, and then, yeah, go to the wrestlingsociety.com, create an account. Even if you don't create an account, everything's free, but, become a part of the society, create an account. You can message us there. You can message other members there. You can watch, the mobile app on the website, or if you have a Roku, Amazon Fire Stick, or Apple TV, then go to WSN and, check out all the content we have. We got incredible stuff.
For sure. For sure. Appreciate it, Brady.
I
As
appreciate you,
always,
brother.
no problem. No problem. Real quick before I get out of here, make sure everybody goes to Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Follow Wrestling from the 313. Um, we got another live coming up very soon. Just want to give a shout out to of course WSC and everybody there, Professor Bear, my homies Joe Monroe, Crander Q, JD from Mayhem Media, John from and everybody at the Sports for You podcast, the Holy Shit podcast representing Detroit, just everybody that's podcasting in the wrestling community. Shout out to you all. Shout out to everybody that's watching this video. And once again, Brady Owens, Mike D, Wrestling from the 313. We out. Peace.